One of the most interesting and fun to use tools in project management is the critical path method. It's a method we use to find the critical path in a network diagram and through this estimate the duration of a project. So let's take this example. We have the project with the following tasks: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. In this table, I have included the description of each task, its predecessors, and its duration, duration in weeks. So based on this table, I'm gonna design the network diagram for this project. And I'm gonna use this to find the critical path and estimate the total duration of this project. So how long is it gonna take to complete this project? Someone might think, why don't I just add the duration of each task? So 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 13 plus 6 plus 4 plus 9 plus 2. At the end of the day, I need all tasks to be completed in order to complete the project. This is true. I do need all the tasks to be completed, but remember that some tasks are going to be done in parallel. So just adding the duration of each task is not going to give me an accurate estimation of how long this project will take to be completed. So, are we ready? Let's go and do this. Okay, where do I start from? The first task is task A. How do I know this? Not because A is the first level of the alphabet, but because A has no predecessors. So I will create a node and I will put task A there. A, as you can see, is followed by two tasks, task B and task C. Both tasks B and C have A as their predecessor. So I will draw two arrows from A, one going to B and one going to C. Task D now has two predecessors, tasks B and C. So in other words, task D is a merge activity. So I will draw two arrows, one from B and one from C, ending to task D. And here is task D. Task E follows task B. So I will draw an arrow leading from B to E. Task F follows task D. Task F follows task D, and task G follows task C, and task H follows E, F, and G. So this is my completed network diagram. All the sequences are expressed in this diagram. Now, the next step is to add times. I will start by doing my forward pass, which requires an additive move through the network from start to finish. Starting from A and moving to H, I will keep adding the durations to the early start and early finish times. Then I will do my backward pass, which is a subtractive move from the finish to start. And then I will use this to determine the longest path, which is the critical path of the project. So here is the network diagram we created with the durations added, and I'm ready to use these for my critical path analysis. So starting from the first activity, activity A, always the early start time for the first activity of a project is set as 0. I can start the first activity immediately, so the early start is always 0. If the duration of task A is 5 and the early start time of A is 0, then the early finish time of A is going to be 0 plus 5 equals 5. So the early finish of A is 5. Now moving from A to B, the early start time of B is going to be the same as the early finish time of A. I can start B as soon as A is completed. So if A finishes at 5, then that's when B can start. So the early start time of B is 5. 5 is the early start time. 5 is also the duration. So 5 plus 5, 10 is going to be the early finish time for B. Going to activity C, the early start time is again the early finish time of A. C can start as soon as I have completed A, so 5. The duration of C is 6, so if I start on week 5 and it takes 6 weeks, I finish on week 11. 5 add 6 equals 11. Now I'm moving to activity D. Activity D has two predecessors, B and C. B has an early finish time of 10 and C has an early finish time of 11. Which one shall I use as the early start time of D? 10 or 11? A rule of thumb that is easy to remember is that when I do my forward pass, I always choose the highest number. Or when I complete high, I choose high. Remember, the early start is on the top left corner, so high. So I have 10 and 11, I choose 11. Why? Because after 10 weeks, B is completed, but C is not. But in order to start task D, I need both B and C to be completed. So I always pick the highest of the two early finish times. So 11. 11. Add 13, which is the duration of D. That will give me 24 as the early finish time for activity D. Moving to activity E, 10 is the early finish time of B, so the early start time of E, 10 plus 6, 16. Moving to activity G, 11 is the early start time because 11 is the early finish time of the predecessor C, plus 9, which is the duration for G, that's 20, the early finish time for G. Activity F, 24 is the early start time, plus 4, 28 is the early finish time. Now, going to activity H, the last activity of this project, I have 3 predecessors with early finish times of 16, 28, and 20. As we said before, rule of thumb, when I do my forward pass, always choose the highest number. When I complete high, I choose high. So 16, 28, and 20, I choose 28. 28 add 2, 30 is the early finish time of the last activity, and that means that 30 weeks is the total duration of the project. I already know that this project is going to take 30 weeks. How cool is that? Now, I'm ready to do my backward pass. I will do my backward pass in order to calculate the late finish and late start times. And later I'm going to use that information, of course, to calculate the slack times. So, going for my backward pass. I start from the end of the project and I always set the late finish of the last activity equal to the late start of that activity. Why? Because the whole idea is that I don't delay the project. Okay, so I set the late finish for activity H 30. Now, as we said earlier, this is a subtractive move. So starting from 30, if the late finish for activity H is 30 and the duration of activity H is 2, then what is the late start? 30 minus 2, the late start is going to be 28. Now, moving to activity G, the late finish of activity G is going to be the late start of activity H. The same applies for F and for E. So for F, the late finish is 28 minus 4, 24. For G, 28 minus 9, 19. For E, 28 minus 6, 22. Moving to activity D, 24 minus 13, 11. So going to activity C, now I have two successors, activity D and activity G. Which late start time shall I use as the late finish time for C? I have 19 and 11. Now the rule of thumb is that when I do my backward pass, I always choose the lowest number, or when I complete low, I choose low. Remember, the late finish time is at the bottom right corner. So 11 and 19, I choose 11. Minus 6, which is the duration of 6, 5. Similarly, for activity B, I have to choose between 11, the late start for D, and 22, the late start for E. Rule of thumb, when I do my backward pass, I choose the lowest. When I complete low, I choose low. 11 and 22, I choose 11. Okay, 11 minus 5, 6. Okay, why I choose the lowest number? Because the latest time I can start activity D is 11. So the predecessor, activity B, cannot finish any time after 11. Okay, so 22 will be impossible. So moving to activity A, again, I have two successors. I have 6 and 5 as their late start time, so I choose the lowest, which is 5. 5 minus 5 equals 0. And now that I have all my late start and late finish times, now that I have completed my forward and backward pass, I can also add slack or float times to this network diagram. It is very easy to calculate the slack or float. Remember, the one we include in the network diagram is the total flat or total slope, not the free one. So how do I calculate it? There are two ways to do so. You either calculate by doing the saying late start minus early start, or late finish minus early finish. So for activity A, it's going to be 0 minus 0 or 5 minus 5. The result is the same. It's 0. So no slack time for activity A. What does this mean? It means that any delay on activity A will cause a delay to the project. That's what no slack means. Moving to activity B, the slack or float time is going to be late start minus early start, 6 minus 5, or late finish minus early finish, 11 minus 10 is 1. For activity C, 5 minus 5, 0. For activity D, 11 minus 11, 0. For activity E, 22 minus 10, 12. For activity G, for activity F, 24 minus 24, 0. For activity G, 19 minus 11, 8. And for activity H, 28 minus 28, 0. Okay, so as you can see, we have now completed the forward and backward pass, and we have added the slack time in our diagram. The next step is to identify the critical path. This is very easy. As we said earlier, the critical path is the longest path. So one way to find which is the critical path will be to just add the durations for each path. So for the, let's say, path A, B, E, H, we should add 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 2. We could do the same for A, B, D, F, H, A, C, D, F, H, and A, C, G, H. And then see which one is the longest, which one has the highest total duration. This is the critical path. However, there is a much easier way to find the critical path. So the critical path is the path with all the tasks from the beginning to the end of the project that have 0 slack time. So in our example, the critical path is A, C, D, F, H. A, C, D, F, and H. As you can see, all these tasks have 0 slack time, and this is our critical path. Here you can see the same project with some more detail with the descriptors included.